So I've spent the last 5 years building my own solopreneur creator lifestyle business. And in that time, I've made just about every mistake you can. But I've also attracted some life-changing opportunities by sharing myself and my ideas with the world. I've made $0 for over 3 months straight, and I've also made over $27,000 in under 30 days. I've spent weeks on a single piece of content nobody ever read. And I've also created content that opened the doors that led to me working with New York Times bestselling authors and YouTubers like Ali Abdaal, getting on the top podcasts like Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, and writing for publications like Psychology Today. Here are 38 harsh truths about building a business I wish I knew 5 years ago that would have saved me years of wasted time, money, and stress. Every time I've struggled, it's been because I've forgotten at least one of these truths. And every time I've succeeded, it's because I've kept them at the forefront of my mind. Also, side note, this was actually inspired by conversations I've been having inside the Creator Alchemy Lab, which is my online membership community. It's designed for ambitious creators taking bold action, and it's all about helping you navigate the psychological side of entrepreneurship. Every month, we have group coaching calls, workshops, challenges. We've got a ton of resources and an incredible active community. Everything is designed to help you get exactly what you need to succeed on your entrepreneurial journey. If you want to learn more, just go to creatoralchemy.com/lab and also put a link below. All right, onward to the harsh truths. Number one, stop waiting for permission. No one is waiting to give you permission, right? Nobody's sitting around thinking, oh, you know what? I should hit this person up and tell them, you know what? That thing you want to do, you should totally go do it. Nobody's going to do that. It is on you. If you want to do something, then do it. Most of us are raised in a world where we're taught we need to wait for permission before we can do the thing. But in entrepreneurship, that just isn't the case. Like if you see somebody who you know you can help, rather than saying, oh, hello, sir, hello, madam, do you mind if I send over this thing I think would help you? Don't do that because you're waiting for permission. You're literally asking, hey, do I have your permission to send you this thing? Instead, just send it to them. Be like, hey, I see you were struggling with these things. Here's how I would approach it. Let me just give it to you away for free. If you like it, cool, we can work together. If not, no big deal. Don't wait for permission. This is actually how I ended up working with Ali Abdaal. Like Ali literally put out a video. It was like a 45-minute video or something about the 8 challenges he was having in life and business. And I watched it. And I was like, oh shit. These are exactly the types of things I help people with in my coaching practice. Like the founders and the entrepreneurs and creators I work with as a coach are exactly a lot of these things Ali's struggling with. So I basically dropped everything I was doing that day and wrote out this, I think it was like a 20-minute read article. It's super raw. Like I didn't even edit it. Like I just wrote it all in one go. And it was, hey, Ali, I don't know you, but if you were my coaching client, here's how I would start to approach every one of these 8 issues you're struggling with. And then, wrote it, published it on my website, and then shared it to Twitter at the time. And I had like, I don't know, 500 followers. I was like, hey, everybody, I don't know Ali, but maybe if enough people share it, he might end up seeing it. People did share it. He did see it and he loved it so much. He was like, hey man, would you be my coach? And that turned into me and him working together for like 6 months. Or like Jay Yang. I had Jay on the podcast before. You can check out that episode. At 16 years old, Jay cold emailed the CEO of Beehive with a list of ideas of how Jay could help them. That turned into him having an internship with them. At 17, he did the same thing for Noah Kagan, the founder of AppSumo, and he sent Noah a 19-page slide deck of all the ways Jay could help Noah grow his social media and newsletter channels. That turned into Noah hiring him to be his head of content. So before Jay even graduated high school, he was making 6 figures working for an incredible founder because he didn't wait for permission. At 19, he self-published his own book called You Can Just Do Things and started working with Alex and Layla Hormozi at acquisition.com as part of their media team. Jay didn't wait for permission. I didn't wait for permission. You don't have to wait for permission. If you want to write the book, start the podcast, reach out to the famous person, host an in-person meetup, apply to be a speaker at a big conference, whatever, just do it. Stop waiting for permission because the only person who can give you that permission is yourself. Number 2, you'll never find time. With entrepreneurship, it's easy to get so wrapped up in being busy and you're like, oh, well, I will do that thing when I find time to do it. You will never find time. You cannot make time, right? You cannot create time. What you can do is protect time and make the most of the time you do have. So for example, for me, I block the first part of my day for writing and other creative pursuits because otherwise I don't find that time. Some shit always comes up that fills that time. Emails, some other project, some whatever. So if it's like, oh, well, I'll write today when I find time to do it. Or I'll work out today when I find time to do it. You just never will. So you protect time. But the other thing I hear a lot from people, and this came up in a recent group coaching call we had in the Creator Alchemy Lab, One of our members said, I really want to get back into recording videos, but I don't have enough time to film. Well, here's the deal. Rather than thinking, oh, I have to have 2 hours in order to have a proper filming session, all I have is 20 minutes, therefore I can't record. Instead of that, say, okay, I have 20 minutes to record. What can I record in 20 minutes? Well, it's just like with working out. Maybe you don't have 2 hours to go to the gym and do this big, long, elaborate workout routine. Okay. But if you have 20 minutes, how much can you cram into 20 minutes? That's a lot better than saying, well, I don't have enough time to do it properly, so I'm just going to skip it altogether today. You'd be surprised how good of a workout you can get in 20 minutes. You would be surprised how good of a video you can record in 20 minutes, or how much you can write in 20 minutes, whatever it is. Protect your time first off, but then also make the most of the time you do have, because you're not going to find it and you can't make it. Number 3, the path of least resistance is often the most crowded. This comes from another conversation we had in the Creator Alchemy Lab. Somebody said, I've tried to build a lifestyle business, but I haven't seen much traction, and now I'm starting to doubt my ability to succeed. Well, here's the deal. When you try to find the path of least resistance, or the low-hanging fruit, right? When you go for the low-hanging fruit, most other people are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to find the lazy way. They're trying to find the shortest distance. They're trying to say, well, how little effort can I put into this? And that's usually the wrong question. That's also how you get tripped up in buy all these courses and shit that say like, oh, you can, build this $1 million business working 2 hours a day or 3 hours a week or some stupid shit. Not true. They're preying on your laziness. Instead, what I've kind of learned is I would much rather try to choose what is a craft I want to develop. So if I want to develop the craft of being a better storyteller, if I want to develop the craft of being a better writer, rather than saying, what is the least amount of effort I can put into writing, say, what kind of writer do I want to become? What type of writing do I want to create? Well, now what skills do I need to cultivate in order to achieve that? Well, suddenly I'm no longer trying to figure out what is the laziest way, what's the least amount of effort I can put in. And now I'm saying, what effort is worth putting in? Why is this path worth going down? Why is this craft worth cultivating? Well, now suddenly I'm spending 5 years developing the craft of storytelling or public speaking. Well, that naturally sets me apart from everybody else trying to do the least amount of effort possible, which is why they still suck at speaking, or they still suck at writing, or whatever the result is they're trying to get. So rather than trying to find the path of least resistance, trying to identify which path is most worthwhile for me, and how do I equip myself to best go down that path and succeed. Number 4, you can sell without being salesy. This is a huge thing a lot of people get tripped up with, because it's like, well, I have this thing and I think it's valuable, but I don't want people to think I'm salesy. So I'm just not going to tell them about it. I was like, well, how do you expect anybody to learn about it, let alone buy it? Or sometimes like, well, I'll just give it away for free. A couple of years ago, I went to a marketing seminar. My friend Chewy, he's got a YouTube channel called Chew Jitsu. He's big in the jiu-jitsu scene. Beyond jiu-jitsu, Chewy's a legit business owner. Like, he is a co-owner of a physical gym. He does the YouTube thing. He's got the instructionals. He's got a newsletter. He's got brand sponsorships, podcast, bunch of other shit. He also teaches marketing, all kinds of things. Chewy decided to do this free marketing seminar for the local community. He was basically beta testing what would later become like a more paid offer. And I remember, 40, 50 people RSVP'd to it, and maybe 12 actually showed up. One dude, partway through this seminar, was like, hey man, I got to leave. I got a barber appointment. It's like, motherfucker, you can't reschedule your haircut, because the thing with it was that the things that Chewy was teaching, people would later pay thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for. And it was very hard earned, real insights into marketing. And I took copious notes because it was so good, so valuable. But later after the seminar, I went up to Chewy and I was like, hey man, I can't believe more people didn't show up. And I can't believe some people left for a fucking hair appointment. And he said, people don't value what is freely given. And that stuck with me ever since. And it kind of echoes the idea of, if you want people to be invested, they need to invest. Meaning, when we pay for something, we naturally place more value on that thing. So when we don't pay for something, we naturally don't place much value on that thing. So when the whole being salesy thing, one, people straight up will not value your shit if you give it away for free. That's just not how apparently humans work most of the time. But the other thing is, if you're so afraid of being of self promotion, or oh, self promotion is cringy. Okay, but fundamentally, if you have made a thing that you have deep conviction is valuable and will legitimately help this population of people you're trying to serve, then you have a responsibility to let them know it exists and how to get it. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to struggle with whatever problem you're trying to solve. Or if I have an answer for you, but then I don't tell you I have that answer, you continue to have the problem. Another thing with this, I think that trips up a lot of people is we think that we're asking for money. Therefore, I am asking for you to, please, sir, may I have some more? Like, please give me your money. But you're not asking for a handout. You're offering to help. You're saying, I made this thing that I believe will legitimately improve your life in some way. And in order for you to access it, this is the cost of admission. This is the investment. That's it. It's an exchange. It's an exchange of value. They give you money, you give them the solution. So fuck all this like salesy, self-promotion, cringy insecurity you have. If you've made something valuable, let people know about it and fucking charge for it. If you don't think it's valuable, then make it better until it is worth charging for, because people won't value what is free and they won't buy shit they don't know exists. Number 5, if you're not making money, you don't have a business, right? Like a business makes money. Fundamentally, a business provides a service or a product in exchange for money. No money, no business. A business makes money. A hobby costs money. If you're not making money, you don't have a business. You have an expensive hobby. So like fundamentally, like I spent so much time early on, like, okay, there's at one point I was debating on how large of a mailbox, a business mailbox I should get. Cause it's like, oh, I've seen, these YouTube influencers, they get all this fan mail and shit. So I don't know if I need to get the small mailbox or not. Maybe I need to at least get the medium one because I'm sure I'm going to get fan mail. I've never gotten a single piece of quote unquote fan mail ever. But I sat here and I got this, the business mailbox. I fucked around with like branding kits and I did this over here and I bought this expensive, complicated tech stack with like all these different softwares and shit. And I spent months on doing what I thought was building a business. But because I wasn't bringing any money, I wasn't building a business. I was building an expensive hobby. It wasn't a business until it started bringing in money. I also know people who they've made a shit ton of money off of a free lead magnet that is a Google Doc. Like they wrote in Google Docs. I know people who don't even have a website, brand kit, none of that shit. And they close deals all the time by just sending DMs to people on social media, setting up a call or whatever. And then they just send them an invoice through like PayPal or Stripe or some shit. So like zero cost, basically. They have a business. I, at the time, had a fucking hobby because it only cost money. It didn't make money. So focus, especially early on, but basically forever, on making sure you're building a business and not an expensive hobby. Which brings me to number 6. A hobby work ethic will not drive business results. Early on, I got caught up in this whole idea of, oh, I can totally work 2 hours a day, or I can have a 4-hour work week, or I can work 20 hours a month and achieve all of these like magical business results and shit. And that is not the case. Because even the people who say like, oh, I only work 2 hours a day, no, they fucking don't. Unless they are sitting on a shit ton of money and just kind of like fuck off throughout the day and like work a little bit here and there, or they have a behind the scenes big ass team that they don't talk about. A 2-hour work day or a 4-hour work week is a fantasy and not a reality. Now, the concept of being effective, right? The concept of, okay, well, how can I make the most of the time I have? How can I condense rather than fucking off and, kind of half-assing things for an entire 8 hours of a normal work day? How can I maybe condense that so that there's less fluff and, ramping up and ramping down and, getting distracted with like bullshit emails or whatever? How can I maybe condense down like my productive time, my most effective time to a handful of hours? That concept, totally solid. But you still have to work your ass off, especially early on. Now, like, don't get me wrong, like even now, I basically live in pajama pants most of the time. during the day because I'm writing or I'm on camera. And, I still have, what is it, like the COVID mullet where like I have, a little bit more professional attire upstairs, but then downstairs I'm just in fucking pajamas or something because the pants I wear don't matter when I'm on camera. And then, later when I am quote unquote off work, I am in gym shorts. I rarely am in like regular dressier clothes anymore. So that may sound like, oh, you're relaxed. You sleep in sometimes, you wear pajama pants, you can travel when you want. Like, okay, yeah, like that sounds really cool. It sounds like a hobby. But I also work 7 days a week. My business is also always on my mind. I take it seriously because if I half ass it, money doesn't come in necessarily. So you cannot expect a hobby work ethic to drive business results. If you want to have a hobby, like if you want to be a writer, for example, and you just want to like, oh, I write when the muse inspires me. If you want to live that kind of a fantasy, cool. But do not think that your muse doing this shit, just waiting around for weeks at a time and just fucking off and walking through the park or some shit, or whatever, laying on a couch looking at cloud. I don't know, whatever the fuck weird writer fantasy life shit, going to a cabin in the woods, once every quarter and like writing for a couple days, Walden style. That just isn't the reality if you're actually going to try to make money from your writing. But if you want to write as a hobby, totally cool to write when you feel like it. But when your livelihood is driven by your ability to write, you do not have that leisure, that privilege, that leeway to do. So if you're going to make a business around writing or a business around speaking or whatever your thing is, understand you got to treat it like a business. You can't treat it like a hobby. Number 7, hustle culture is really just virtue signaling for entrepreneurs. So another conversation I had in the Creator Alchemy Lab with an entrepreneur, and he said, I'm in my mid 30s and I'm afraid I don't have enough ambition to succeed as an entrepreneur because several of my friends have told me I don't grind enough. I don't hustle enough. So maybe I don't have the level of ambition necessary to succeed. Here's the deal. I'm 36 right now, 37 in a month from recording this. At this point in my life, I am probably at least as ambitious, if not probably more ambitious than I was when I was younger. The difference is that now I am simply unwilling to sacrifice my mind and body to grind. Right? Like when I was like 20 or some shit, I would do all-nighters all the time. I would get by on 3 hours of sleep and just relentless monster energy drinks or some shit. I even in undergrad or grad school, I don't remember. I would get, because it was cheaper, because I was a broke college student, I would buy pre-workout powders like to go to the gym with, and those would be my energy drinks. So rather than spending however many dollars on a bunch of energy drinks, I would just get a canister of pre-workout and then just put a couple scoops in my water, and then that would fuel me to do all-nighters. Probably wasn't healthy, but I was okay to do that. I felt like I could handle that. Well, now I'm in mid-30s. Absolutely not. Like I get a solid 9 hours of sleep, even if that means I got to push shit in the morning because maybe I had a late night or maybe whatever it was. Nope. Unwilling to sacrifice my physical health. But hustle culture, honestly, a lot of times just kind of glorifies inefficiency of like, oh, I hustled 16 hours a day. Okay, well, how many hours were you actually doing shit that mattered? 4, 7, even 10, even a 10-hour day of like legitimate productive time. Cool. Well, those other 6 hours were just you wasting fucking time or fucking off somehow. So don't glorify the 16-hour day. Yes, you have to work your ass off. Yes, you have to work super hard. But this hustle culture, grind culture is most of the time a bunch of 20-year-old-ish dudes glorifying and virtue signaling to be like, hey, look at how hard I work. It's like, maybe not. Maybe that isn't the best thing to optimize for, to feel proud of. Which even like, I think about like martial arts. A lot of times, like traditional martial art, kind of the way most people understand them, as you get older, you aren't as physically capable. Well, when you're younger, you can compensate for inefficient movements with athleticism, with explosivity, strength, speed, flexibility, whatever. But as you get older, you start to lose some of these things. So you have to rely on efficiency. Hustle culture isn't about efficiency. It's just about brute force. and sacrifice at all costs. But the way you actually improve in any endeavor, whether it is martial arts or music or business or also the shit, is actually learning to be more effective and learning to be more efficient rather than sacrificing your mental, physical, whatever well-being for it. So fuck hustle culture. Number 8, there's prestige in solving hard problems. There is not prestige in making problems hard to solve. So one of the things I had to learn early on was like, your intelligence is an asset until it becomes a liability. And you likely won't know when you cross that line. Or like when you're a smart person, you like solving problems that only smart people can solve. Well, a lot of times what that means is when you find a simple problem, you're like, oh fuck, this is too simple. I need to make it complicated so that then I have now solved a complicated problem. So then you just make shit harder than it needs to be because you think there's some sort of prestige or pride or honor in making this thing hard just so you can say you solved a hard problem. We overcomplicate shit all the time. And I would do that so often early on. It's like, oh, this seems too simple. There's got to be nuance that other people don't consider. And sometimes that's true. But more often than not, it was just me getting my own fucking way and just making shit more complicated than it needed to be just so I could have this weird sense of accomplishment. Like, oh, I solved a hard problem. But entrepreneurship is hard enough. You do not need to make it even harder. Sometimes it is really just as simple as sending a thoughtful DM to somebody about how you can help them. You don't need some complicated CRM, outreach template, sales coaching course, or what the fuck ever. And then you got to get stationery with like your logo and headers, but then first you got to like trademark your fucking logo and like, oh, it's too much. You're making it too complicated. Sometimes it can just be simple. Just send the fucking DM. You can try like find hard problems to solve. Awesome. But do not find a problem and then make it harder to solve. Number 9, ideas do not matter. Ideas are easy, but more importantly, ideas don't exist. Or like you can't touch an idea. You can't steal an idea. You can't reap any rewards from an idea, right? I hear people sometimes they say, oh, well, I don't want to tell people what I want to do because I don't want them to steal my idea. You can't steal something that doesn't exist. Now, if you take action and you execute on that idea, then it matters. Or like even like, people get wrapped up with like copyright shit. Like, oh, I don't want to tell people what I did because I don't want to like, I want to have the copyright to it. Even with like copyright and like all this other shit, it doesn't protect the idea itself. Like you cannot copyright an idea. What you can copyright is the expression of an idea. For example, like James Clear doesn't own the copyright to habits and talking about habits. I can talk about habits. Now, if I took a chapter of Atomic Habits and wrote it out verbatim, that would be copyright infringement. That would be plagiarism because that is how he expressed those ideas in his own words. Well, I can express the same ideas, give or take, in my own way. Same idea, different expression. Totally cool. But it gets to this point of ideas aren't real. Ideas do not matter. I hate, so many times people are like, oh, I had this really good idea. Okay, cool. I don't fucking care. What'd you do with it? Oh, nothing. I just had a really good idea. I don't give a shit about your good ideas. Nobody gives a shit about your good ideas. They give a shit about what you do with those ideas. Do you put them into reality? Or do you just endlessly talk about them and think about them, but never do anything with them? So maybe spend less time coming up with ideas and more time turning those ideas into something real. Number 10, listen to people who open their wallets, not their mouths. A very, very common mistake I made and a lot of other people make early on is you run polls. And you're like, oh, hey, do you think this would be a good idea? Right? Go back to ideas. Or like, hey, do you think I should do this? Or hey, would you buy this? Sometimes that's a question that trips people up. And then people say, oh yeah, I would totally buy that. Well, that person is voting with their mouth. They have nothing invested. There's no skin in the game. And more often than not, the same person who told you that they would buy doesn't actually buy. Why? Because it's easier to vote with your mouth than with your wallet. Instead, what I had to learn the very hard way was, when I have like a paid offer, like if I'm going to build a new course or some other like new offer like that, I do not ask people if they think it'd be a good idea. I do not ask people if they would buy it. I don't give a shit. What I give a shit about is, are you actually going to give me your money? So now I pre-sell. I basically say, hey, I am in the process of building this thing. Here's what it is. Here's the problems it solves. Here's who it's for, whatever. Here's how much it is. If you buy it now, you will get the early bird discount rate or whatever, but you got to buy it now if you want that discount or whatever the bonus is or whatever, something to spur action. Well, let's say I have like my validation number of, let's say I'm going to pre-sell something. And in my own head, I say, as long as 10 people buy this during like the pre-sale period, that is my validation number. That means enough people want this early to validate me actually building the whole thing and investing my own time and money and energy into actually bringing it to reality. Well, let's say I run a pre-sale for like 2 weeks, but then I give myself another like 2 to 4 weeks to actually build the thing out. Well, if by that 2 week mark, that validation point, if maybe only 6 people have bought, what that means is I failed to validate, which means not enough people fucking want it. So then I just give those 6 people the refunds, and then maybe I offer them a complimentary call for a vote of confidence, maybe get some more market research on like them and like what else they would find valuable in the future or whatever. That may actually sound like a failure, but it actually saved me a shit ton of time, money, and energy because I didn't build something nobody would have wanted. Because if I can't get 10 people to buy early, what's there to guarantee anybody would buy after? It's almost like this, field of dream shit. Like, if I build it, they will come. No, if they come, I will build it. So when it comes to my actual business and my business decisions, I don't care what people tell me with their mouths. I care about what they tell me with their wallets. Are you actually willing to buy the course, to join the community, to buy my coaching, to buy whatever the other thing is? And if not, that's cool. But that vote doesn't factor into my decisions. It's also like, again, going back to an earlier lesson, people don't value what is freely given. People who invest become invested. It's the same thing with this. If somebody actually gives you their money, that means they're invested. That also means they're naturally a higher, quote unquote, quality of a customer, of a client, of a member of your audience, of a person, whatever, because they're willing to actually invest something real. Somebody's just saying, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, you should totally do that. There's no investment in that. There's no skin in the game in that. That's easy to do. It's just lip service. So focus on who are the people actually giving you their money, not just the people saying, oh, that's a good idea, or like on that post. That shit doesn't matter. Number 11, branding is a waste of time. So branding and building a brand or a personal brand are two different things. Branding is like the packaging. It's the wrapping paper kind of deal. Branding is like your hex codes, your fonts, your logo, shit like that. That doesn't really matter. It especially doesn't matter early on. And even when it does matter, you can always change it later, right? Like even like major companies rebrand all the time. But your brand, your personal brand, I find it is much more helpful to think about it as reputation. So anytime like I would ordinarily say like, oh, my personal brand, like how does this affect my personal brand? Will this help or hurt my personal brand? I just substitute reputation. How will this help my reputation? How does this affect my reputation? Because your reputation, your personal brand is all about trust, respect, connection, resonance. What do people think about you when they hear your name? The fucking colors and the font you use or what all none of that shit matters. It is your reputation that matters. So focus on building a brand in that. Focus on building a reputation. Don't get caught up in all the branding bullshit. Because nobody cares how pretty your wrapping paper is if it's wrapped around a fucking turd. Or like I see people all the time, they spend so much time and tens of thousands of dollars on branding kits and a website rebrand and like all this other shit. But it's like, okay, but the thing you have rebranded, like what's underneath of like the actual substance of your website or who you are as a person or the quality of services you offer, one, didn't change, but two, sucked to begin with. So it doesn't matter how pretty the wrapping paper is. It doesn't matter how pretty your brand kit is. It could be a dope ass logo. It could be a super fucking cool, colors and hex code or, colors and fonts, combinations and like all this super cool. And it's all like consistent across platforms and all this, you did this custom, artwork shit. All that's super cool. And that might get me through the door. But then as soon as I'm through the door, I'm like, oh, well, what does this person actually have to say? What do they actually have to offer? If all that fucking sucks, because you didn't focus on building a brand, building a reputation, branding doesn't matter. Focus on building your brand, your reputation. The other shit doesn't matter. Number 12, people don't follow you for your content. This was something I've talked to Ali Abdal about. So think about it like this. If you know Ali, or if you follow his content, if somebody else took the script from one of Ali's videos and they re-recorded it frame by frame, it wouldn't do nearly as well. And the reason for that is it wasn't Ali. People don't follow Ali for his content on productivity or building a lifestyle business or whatever the fuck else he's talking about. That's cool. And yes, it should be good. But the real reason people follow Ali and they keep coming back to his content is because of him, not his actual content. It's the same for pretty much everybody else. People don't follow you for your content, they follow you for you. Or even like, like this episode or like the other shit I talk about. I don't think there are really any other like psychologists who are also coach and are entrepreneurs who work with, creators, founders, leaders, shit like that, who do specifically what I do. But there are plenty of other people in like the personal development or self-help space. There are plenty of other people in like the business space and shit. And a lot of the things that I say maybe aren't new, but I say them my way. And over time, you've learned to get to know me. Oh, for example, like, maybe, oh, Corey cusses, or, oh, Corey's no bullshit. I hear that a lot. Corey's no bullshit. Or sometimes people follow me because they, I'll talk about one of the things I call tactical vulnerability, which is basically not like trauma dumping, but being tactful or tactical rather of sharing bits and pieces of yourself that may feel a little bit vulnerable. So like, I talk about how I grew up poor and shit, public housing, food stamps, some delinquency behaviors, other things. Well, a lot of times, or, I've talked about my accent and how when I went to college, I tried to lose my accent. And then that ended up in, some identity issues because I was kind of trying to distance myself from my upbringing. And then I had to like come back to terms with like, being comfortable with my heritage and my upbringing and how I sounded and reclaiming my accent and my identity and things. Well, a lot of other people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, I grew up poor too. Or, oh, I've also struggled to accept my accent, or I've struggled to accept this, other part of me. Well, then I can sit here and say some business shit like, hey, validate your idea before you invest too much into it. You may have heard that from somebody else. So it wasn't that you were coming to me for my content, you were coming to me for me and my take on it, or because you feel connected to me, you see yourself in my journey or some other kind of shit, right? Or I seem like somebody you would want to, go to a bar with or sit around a campfire with. So rather than getting so caught up in trying to create the perfect content, it's like, well, how can I maybe share my imperfections? How can I share my story, my experiences? How can I be authentic? Because especially now, with AI and fucking copycats and clones and deep fakes and whatever all this other stupid shit is. And even before that, right, there were other people who were just who would copy your account or they would plagiarize your words or some shit. That's been going on in one form or another for forever. But your brand, going back to another lesson, but your reputation, your authenticity, that's really a moat. Like, because when people connect with you, that's what matters. It's not your content, it's you. So focus on how can you be you? How can you bring more of you, your most authentic self forward? That's what the fuck matters. It's also super hard to do because it feels vulnerable. It feels like we're exposed. Like, oh, I don't know how to be myself. Like, I need to be like this prim and proper fucking professional. Fuck all that. Who the fuck are you? Be that person. Easier said than done, but very much worth doing. Number 13, don't try to be a one person media company. It's sort of, don't half ass a bunch of things, whole ass one thing. Early on, I saw Gary V's stuff. And I mean, Gary V, he's got a lot of really good content, but Gary's also got a team of dozens of people to record him, to chop up his videos into 3 to 5 clips a day across every fucking platform. And he's doing this over here and over here and over there. And I was like, oh, I'll do that. I can be a one person media company. Let me create native content for each of the whatever 8, 13, whatever the fuck social platforms. And let me comment and repost and do this and do that. And like, okay, I got to film the long form, but then I got to do for the video and then the podcast, but then also the newsletter over here. Then I got to do guest posts over here. Then I got to do this for LinkedIn and then Instagram. It's too fucking much. Too fucking much. You cannot be a one person media company. Not a good one anyway. What you can do, what I had to learn to do, is identify what are the highest leverage based on my own metrics and like what I'm trying to achieve. What are the highest leverage places I can be? And how can I focus on them? So like, yes, there's a little bit of like experimenting of like, oh, let me try out LinkedIn. Let me try out this thing over here. But learn to very quickly spin those down. Like, okay, Blue Sky isn't working for me, but LinkedIn, I'm seeing an uptick. I like being on LinkedIn more. That makes sense to focus on LinkedIn. For me, what I learned was the highest leverage things for me are YouTube, because a lot of people just like watching videos, especially now. More and more people are watching longer videos because they're watching them on like bigger screens, like their TVs. I like to talk a lot, if you can't fucking tell. So longer form makes sense for me. I enjoy it. Do a newsletter plus website. This gives me another way to express myself. I actually typically prefer to express myself through writing unless I'm talking live. Actually, solo videos like this are actually really hard for me to do. My working memory sucks. So like it's hard for me to, and I can't read out loud very well. So like I can't look at a fucking like teleprompter and like read a verbatim script, but also I lose what the fuck I'm trying to say. So even like bullet points sometimes is like hard for me to do. But if I'm talking live, totally cool. It's a weird disconnect. So I like talking a long time, YouTube. I like writing, which is a newsletter. And then like one social media platform, which I said for me currently at the date of recording is LinkedIn. It might change in the future, but I stopped trying to be everywhere all at once 3 to 5 times a day. It's untenable. And that's also how you burn out. So if you are one person, focus on one thing or like 3 tiny things. Again, for me, YouTube, newsletter, one social platform. Number 14, be less impressed, more involved. This actually comes from a quote I heard Matthew McConaughey share on the Daily Stoic podcast with Ryan Holiday. I love it. And the whole thing is like a lot of times when you meet somebody famous or just somebody you perceive as higher than you or you're impressed by or inspired by, whatever, it's easy for you to try to be impressed or to show how impressed you are or to be impressive yourself. Nobody really wants you to fawn over them or get caught up in like trying to showboat, like, oh, yeah, I've done this and I've done this and I've done like you're trying to impress them. People don't want to be impressed. They want to have a real conversation. So the whole thing with like Matthew McConaughey was talking about was rather than trying to get into that trap of fawning over them or trying to showboat, try to be actually involved in their life, meaning like give a shit about them as a person, learn to see them as a person, connect with them on that level. Because like in real life, people don't have like their follower count or like their revenue number or whatever above their head. So don't treat them like they do. Like I've met decently famous people and they are just a regular person. A regular person in that, because like obviously everybody has like eccentricities and shit. And there are like differences in how they live their life. But as a person, as an individual, they are a regular person. So if you met them and didn't know they were famous, they would just seem like a pretty normal person. Well, if you think about it, once you get to a certain level, the number of normal interactions you have lessens. So a lot of times when you meet somebody like this, if you can just talk to them like a normal person, it's refreshing, but it also makes it a lot easier to become friends. Right? Because like if you meet somebody, you're like, hey, I'm such a big fan. I love this. I love that. I basically stalk you and I know everything you've ever said publicly. Who in the fuck wants to befriend their stalker? First, if you're like, hey man, read your book, it was great. Moving on. Because the majority of people I've met who at first seemed like they could have been really intimidating, like, oh, they're too famous or they're too wealthy or they're too important or whatever, instantly like it's almost like the walls kind of come down a little bit when you just talk to them like a person and you're trying to like genuinely give a shit and authentically connect with them rather than seeing them as a means to an end, rather than trying to impress them, rather than fawning over them. So be less impressed, more involved because people are people and people like to be treated like people. Number 15, no one wants you to pick their brain. I personally hate this now, and I can only imagine how many people I irritated when I was first starting out. I was like, hey, do you mind if I just pick your brain real quick? Or like, hey, I have 15 questions. Or like, hey, do you have time to jump on a Zoom call? Nobody's got fucking time to jump on a call for you to just be a mooch and like leech shit from them. Nobody. A much better way, kind of related to, another lesson of being involved rather than impressed. Learning how to lead with value, learning how to have a genuine desire to connect and not just be a leech. Showing you care, showing you've read their stuff and how it helps you. Like, hey man, I read your book. It was super helpful. I love this part. This lesson I applied in this way, and this was a result in my own life. Just wanted to shout it out and say thanks. I saw you're coming to a conference in Austin. I'll be there. Hope to get to meet. That's it. You're not picking the brain. You're not obligating them for some bullshit Zoom call. You're leading with value, with genuine connection. Because people when people create something, they want to know that it's helping people. So something as simple as that, like, hey, this thing you made helped me. I will be here. Hopefully we can connect. That's simple. Or if you have a question, rather than The cold DM approach of, hey, I have a question. Mind if I ask it? Buddy, you blew your one fucking chance at me seeing your question. You wasted your question because your question was, can you ask a question? Just ask the fucking question. One of the guys I connected with, his name's Nick Wignall. He's a fellow psychologist and writer and creator and things. And when I was first starting, and I was still in the process of like Googling how to start an LLC and all these other things, I was like, fuck, I don't know how to do like a WordPress website. Like, I don't know how to make a website. So I saw Nick. He had grown a large audience on like Medium at the time, but I noticed he had a small audience on Twitter. So I hit him up and I was like, hey man, I'm a fellow psychologist, been reading your stuff Medium for a long time, really like it. I'm actually trying to go into a similar space, not talking about the same topics you talk about, but using my expertise as a psychologist to help people in a lay friendly way. I noticed you're using I noticed your website is built on WordPress. Do you have any templates or starting advice for what I'm trying to do? So again, layered, like, here's a connection, value your work, it's been helpful. Here's a quick question. And that turned into like him giving me some really good advice when we kind of became friends and things. That is how you can reach out to people. Not this bullshit of, hey, can I pick your brain? Lead with value, lead with genuine connection. There's nothing wrong with sending a cold message as long as there's genuine connection with it. Because cold just means you don't know them beforehand. That doesn't mean it has to be spammy. It doesn't have to be a leech or a mooch. You can lead with value and genuine connection. Number 16, who you can text matters more than your follower count. Like, being online is fun, having a lot of followers is cool, whatever. But I've met too many people with large audiences, large followings, and they don't actually have good access to individual people. Like, they may have had a celebrity reshare one of their posts, but they themselves can't reach out to that person. So learning to build like deep, genuine, authentic relationships with real people goes way further than any follower count ever could. It's also like, even quote unquote influencers with big followings, the majority of their business outcomes happen behind the scenes, whether it is through the DMs, in a text message, being able to just hit up somebody to go hang out. Because one person can help open doors, they can teach you, they can connect you with other people, they're a potential collaborator. And I mean, it's one reason I started the podcast was because I ended up developing, a quote unquote network of, actual friends and good, solid relationships. And we were having these conversations privately, either at a coffee shop or, in a jujitsu gym or on Zoom or something. But I wanted a space I could have some of these conversations publicly for other people to enjoy. I would much rather be able to hit up one very specific person than have 1,000 or 10,000 followers that I may never be able to actually have a relationship with or be able to actually contact. So who you can text matters way more than how many followers you have. Number 17, don't romanticize being a lone wolf, because lone wolves die in the wild. Right? Like, no matter how smart you are, somebody knows more than you. And one mentor, one friend, one question can save you years and tens of thousands of dollars. So rather than trying to say, well, how can I just brute force my way through this? Oh, I'm a lone wolf, I don't need anybody, I can figure it out on my own. One, maybe you can't, but two, maybe you can, but how long would it take you to do? In business, collaborations are everything. So get rid of the whole lone wolf mentality. Now, this doesn't mean like you have to be dependent on other people. Obviously, you have to be really great at what you do in your lane. And maybe you could succeed relatively on your own, but why do it? Entrepreneurship can be lonely enough. Why make it feel even lonelier, even harder, trying to do everything yourself? When again, you could hit up somebody to collaborate, you could just ask somebody for some of their insight, or even just have friends who get it, other creator friends, entrepreneur friends, founder friends, whatever you want to call them. Have some sort of friends who get it that you can hit up and just, have even like a monthly call where you just get together, update each other, give any support you can, and just stay connected. One of my friends, Mel Varghese, Mel and I have like a standing monthly call. And on these calls, we talk about, oh, here's what's working well. Here's what I'm excited for. Here's some fun ideas I'm going to explore in the next quarter. We have all that. But then we also make a space for like, hey man, this is what I'm struggling with lately. Or, hey, my launch didn't go as well as I wanted. Or, hey, I'm really, I'm at this fork in the road and I'm trying to figure out like which direction, Which direction should I go? And even if the other person doesn't have an answer for that, even if we aren't asking or seeking an actual answer for it, just having the space to process it, to feel connected and support from somebody else who gets it, super, super important. So at the risk of, making this metaphor a little cringier, don't be a lone wolf. Find your pack. Number 18, focus on building a portfolio of assets. And I don't just mean like a stock portfolio. Every article you write, every workshop you do, every video or podcast episode you post, all of these you can look at as individual assets in your portfolio of thought leadership and competency. Each one builds your reputation. Each one attracts the right people and the right opportunities. It's also like nobody cares what you say you can do. Everybody makes claims all the time. They don't care what you say you can do. They care about what you've actually done. And like the number of times I've, reached out to somebody who I felt was like a higher level than me. What most people do when they get hit up a lot is, let's say on Twitter. I'll hit somebody up on Twitter and then they will look at my profile and they'll say, okay, well, here's this guy, Corey. He's hit me up. Let me see if this guy is worth following up with. And one thing they do a lot of times is they look through, what have you posted? What ideas have you shared? Whether that is on social media or a lot of times they'll go to your website. At least in my case, they'll go to my website and then they'll look through the articles I've posted, or they'll see the podcasts I've put out or the podcasts I've been on, then maybe even watch one or two. Because again, each of these is an asset in my portfolio. And then they're like, oh, I like how Corey thinks. Let me follow up with him. Let me hit him up and start a conversation. The other piece to this is I will share some on social media, but the majority of my effort goes into longer form content. Again, go back to one of the other lessons. YouTube has a long lifespan, right? There's some videos that'll pop off 10 years later. Then I have my newsletter and my website. Because if I only post something to Twitter or, even LinkedIn, in a couple days or a couple weeks, nobody's ever going to see it again. That isn't really a good asset because assets are meant to compound in value over time. Versus like an article on your website, people will find those years and years later. So again, every time I think about putting out a piece of content, I think about it as, how can this be an asset that adds to the value of my portfolio and will continue to increase in value over time? Number 19, don't live on rented land. So social media is it can be fun. There are a lot of notifications. There's a lot of, kind of hijacking how your brain works so that you want to come back to it and use it again and again. But the issue, well, there are a lot of issues with social media, but one of the issues is you are beholden to the algorithm, right? Like all it takes is a single algorithm change and suddenly your posts aren't getting seen by the people who signed up to get your posts. Or like if I have 1,000 LinkedIn followers and I put out a post, 10 or 20 of my actual followers may see it. Now, yes, maybe other people will see it and they may follow me, but unlikely in the grand scheme of things, unless something goes quote unquote viral. But the other thing is I could be on a good trajectory. I could have, hacked the algorithm. I could have figured it out, but then the algorithm changes and suddenly my reach is cut in half or even becomes like a 5% or a tenth of what it used to be. This happens all the time on all the social media platforms. But the other thing is like, getting shadow banned. Now, a lot of people think they get shadow banned when really they just have like shitty content. But I remember early on when I was still writing about like mental health and things, I got shadow banned from Facebook and like meta platforms. In that, I wrote an article that got flagged. It was basically an article about like suicide. And obviously it wasn't pro suicide, but it was built around the idea of, a lot of people think suicide is selfish. Like, oh, you're trying to find the easy way out. And actually, from a psychological perspective, the reason a lot of people struggle with suicidal ideation is that they feel like a burden. So the whole point of this article was actually based on like an academic article around the idea that in some cases it is almost like a distorted form of altruism of, well, I want to do right by my family. I want to ease their burden. I've identified myself as a burden. Therefore, logically, again, not correctly, but in this flawed logic scenario, I need to remove myself as the burden for them. And the whole point of the article wasn't to advocate for it, clearly. It was to help people understand that there are nuances with mental health struggles like that and to learn to see it from the other person's perspective so that you can give adequate support. Well, because Facebook and I guess Meta in general at the time anyway, had a blanket, you can't talk about suicide in any capacity. Even I, as a doctoral level psychologist, licensed to practice clinical psychology, to diagnose it, to treat it, to do all this other shit around it. Even I got shadow banned because I talked about it. And I mean that as in Facebook, I couldn't even like send the article in Facebook Messenger. Like Facebook Messenger would say, you are not allowed to share this link. We will not send it. You cannot post it. You cannot, there's no way anybody on Facebook's platform will be able to see this article, click on the link, even you can't even publish the link. One is like, if I would have put all of my eggs into the basket of Facebook, I would have been fucked, because who knows the other ramifications that would have had on any of my future posts or my page or anything at the time. So one, I don't really fuck with meta platforms now. Just, it isn't worth it. I'll sometimes post some things on Instagram, but in no way do I use those for anything business outcome related. But that also kind of goes to the idea of like, if you have 1,000 followers or even like 100,000, let's say you have 100,000 followers on a platform. If tomorrow your account gets deleted or shadow banned, shut down in some way, well, then tomorrow you have 0 followers and 0 way to contact them. Versus if you have a website, people can still visit it. If you have a newsletter, well, now you have people's email addresses. So social media is typically seen as rented land, and a newsletter and your website are considered owned land. Because with a newsletter, if I want to move from like Kit to Beehive or Substack to Kit or any shuffle them around, all I have to do is download a CSV file of all of my subscribers' email addresses. And then I can just download it from one email service provider and upload it to the next one. So I keep my contact list and I can take it with me wherever I go. Well, with LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or any of these others, you never actually get that person's contact information. So the priority is always getting that contact information, is always getting that email address so that they can subscribe to your newsletter, so that you can send them your ideas, right? Again, if I have 1,000 LinkedIn followers, maybe only 10 of them are going to see my post. If I have 1,000 newsletter subscribers and I send a newsletter out, all 1,000 of them get it. They may not all open it, but they all get it. Which, related note, if you haven't already, I would highly recommend you subscribe to my newsletter. Just go to creatoralchemy.com to subscribe. Every week-ish, I share psychological insights that are designed to help you transform your business, your life, and yourself. And when you subscribe, I'll send you the Psychology of Success Masterclass completely for free. It is a multi-day email-based course that will help you build the foundations to succeed in life and business. So again, creatoralchemy.com, that's where you can go to sign up. I'll also put a link below. Number 20, if you're stuck at a fork in the road, it means both paths are viable. It's really easy to think, oh, well, I'm at a fork in the road. I need to do more research. I need to do another pro-con list. I need to really, really think this through so that I can pick the best option, so that I can pick the right option. And the reality is, the reason you are stuck at this fork in the road is usually proof both paths are viable. Because if one path was clearly not viable, you wouldn't be stuck. You would not be at this fork in the road. You would be able to clearly say, oh, that is not the right path. I'm going down this one. And you would continue to do that every time you hit a fork. Oh, this is clearly the right one. So then when you eventually get to one where you're like, fuck, I don't know which way to go, as intelligent as you are, as thought out as you are, that probably means both are viable. And I heard this idea a while back of anytime you're stuck making a decision, flip a coin and basically let the coin toss aside. And it sounds flippant, but the way it actually goes is when you flip the coin, so you say, okay, heads, I go left, tails, I go right. But when you flip the coin, when the coin is in midair, which way does your brain say, oh, fuck, I hope it lands on tails? Well, the fact that your brain was like, oh, I hope it lands on tails, that means you actually want to go that direction. So if you flip a coin and you feel yourself leaning one way and both ways are viable, then the way you lean is probably perfectly fine. So whether you flip a coin, throw a dart, spin a wheel, whatever the fuck, doesn't matter, if both are equally viable. Now, if you're still stuck, then a next level to this is still to identify which one are you maybe leaning very, very slightly more toward. Okay, well, which one is that? So the first question, which one is that? Second question, why is that? Third question, what would have to be true in order for you to give yourself permission to commit to that path? And the question number 4, what do you need to do to make those things true. So, for example, oh, I'm leaning more toward this path because I feel that in 5 years, that is just the much better, like that's where I want to end up in 5 years. The other path, 5 years down the line, I don't actually want to go that way. Okay, cool. But you're still maybe waiting for permission, or you're still feeling that you're not quite ready to commit to this path. What are you waiting to be true in order for you to give yourself permission to go down that path? Well, if I had a couple more leads, or if I had a couple more clients, or if this one change happened, then I would feel comfortable enough to move forward. Okay, cool. What do you need to do to make those things true? What do you need to do to get more leads, to get more clients, to make that change happen? Okay. And you break these things down so that you can go down the path you actually want to go down. Number 21, metrics matter until they mislead you. External metrics, any metric really, is inherently flawed because you probably heard, what gets measured gets managed. Yes, but that also means whatever you measure is what you optimize for. So you have to be very intentional with what you measure because that is what you're going to optimize for. There's this thing that's called like the Cobra effect. And basically, the story goes way back when, I think it was India or some village or town within India, they wanted to incentivize people to collect cobras so they could get rid of them. So they would pay they would pay money per head of a cobra. Well, then, so that was what they measured. How many cobras are we bringing in? People were incentivized to bring in cobras, cobra heads. Well, what actually ended up happening because they optimized for that, it was like, oh, well, if I bring in one cobra head, I get $5. If I bring in 10 cobra heads, I get $50. So people ended up breeding cobras so that they could make more money by bringing in cobras because they measured how many cobras they were getting in, because they optimized for getting more cobras. They actually ended up making the problem so much worse because then all these people started breeding cobras in order to make money from submitting cobras. It's the same thing when you optimize for basically any metric. If you optimize for impressions, then you're going to do what gets more impressions, which oftentimes is being controversial. If you optimize for money at all costs, then you are likely to do things that compromise your integrity or your values in order to make more money. So, yes, you do need to measure certain things. You do need to be aware of certain metrics for sure, but being very intentional with what you measure because that is what you will likely optimize for. Number 22, audience capture can cause you to lose yourself. So audience capture is this phenomenon where you basically become a caricature of yourself is how I kind of think about it. One of the common examples people will give is there's this kid, his name was, I think he went by like Nikado Avocado or something. He was a skinny little vegan kid and he was a YouTuber, and he would just make all these like random influencer day in the life, just random, old school YouTube shit. And he wasn't really getting a lot of traction. But then one day he did this, it was like a mukbang video. It was like a binge eating video where like you eat just like a mountain of ramen or some shit. That video went viral. So he was like, oh, well, let me do another video and see if that goes viral too. And it did, because I guess there are a lot of people with a feeder kink on YouTube, I guess. I don't know. So over time, he just did more and more and more of those, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so did he. So he went from like this super skinny little vegan kid to this, like, I don't know, 400 plus pound just slob of a person because of audience capture, because he was giving his audience more of what he thought they wanted, right? You see the same thing with people like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson at first talked a lot more about like religion and philosophy. And once he got into like political commentary type stuff, he would criticize people on the right and the left. But over time, he stopped really being as accepted by people who were more left leaning, and people who were more right leaning embraced him a lot more. So over time, his political views and commentary went further and further and further to the right, conservative, all that, to the point that then he sounded like anti-left, and he would attack the left and the woke, and he would go off on like trans shit and like whatever it was. I don't know Jordan Peterson. We have mutual friends and they have respect for him. So, I would definitely be down to have a conversation with him and get to know the real him. But that is an example of audience capture. Of at first he would criticize both, but over time he went pretty hard right and started to lose part of himself. Nikado Avocado started to lose himself by giving his audience more of what they wanted. Even Mark Manson, a little bit ago, he put out a video about how he was effectively spinning down his podcast, even though it was one of the top podcasts in the world, for this very reason, because of audience capture. Because he was like, look, there are a lot of real incentives for me to do the podcast a certain way that doesn't really feel aligned with my own values or the direction I want to go. But people give me a lot of money to do this. And I have, ad spots I've got to fill. So I've got to put out episodes. And sometimes that means I will have somebody on the podcast that I don't really want on the podcast, or I don't push back against them as much as I would like to. Or maybe I have people on who are more controversial, even though I wouldn't ordinarily want to have them on, but I know they would drive views because of the controversy they bring, or purely because they have a large audience and would promote that episode. I know that episode will do better. So then thankfully, he was able to resist that pull of, well, let me just do this because of all of the incredible incentives, despite the misalignment in my own values. But it is very, very easy for audience capture to occur. And I remember early on when I was on Twitter, I followed a couple of the growth guru bros and their templates and their approaches to going viral. And I started to get traction, honestly, really quickly. But then I saw the types of people I was attracting. I was like, I don't want you motherfuckers around me because I don't like y'all. Like your beliefs, your views, how you see other people, how you show up in the world, not my jam. Don't want to fuck with y'all. But there were a lot of incentives that tried to motivate me to keep doing that. Oh, I'm getting a lot of growth. I'm getting all these people. Everybody's agreeing with me. I'm making a name for myself. I was like, no, because where this would lead, it's audience capture. Where it would lead, I would become somebody different. And I don't want that. So I put out a couple posts that was basically me planting my flag as far as my philosophy and a couple of my views. So it's like, hey, I'm not your people. Okay. And thankfully, those quote unquote, wrong people left and I was able to course correct. But being super, super aware of audience capture because it will cause you to lose yourself. Number 23, forget about work-life balance. It is a lie when you're an entrepreneur. Your business will be on your mind 24/7, 365 or 366 for leap years. Like even when I'm quote unquote off work, I'm still thinking about my business. When I'm in the car on the drive to the gym, I'll have an idea. It's like, oh fuck, I need to write that down real quick because that'll make for a good article. Or like, oh, even this episode started off as me being on my way to the gym and be like, oh, I should totally do a video about, harsh truths because I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary as an entrepreneur. Your business is never not on your mind. And going back to my friend Chewy, Chewy, he's a co-owner of a jiu-jitsu gym. He's got a jiu-jitsu YouTube channel. He now runs jiu-jitsu tournaments and he does a bunch of other things. That's what he does all day, every day. And he's talked about this before. His wife now, Jess, she's fucking great. She understands it. They have a great life. But in the past, he would, date other people and they would just be like, hey, can you skip the gym today? Or, hey, can you just, clock out for the rest of the day? He's like, no, this is my life. This is what I do. Work-life balance for me makes sense when you have a regular job. You clock in, you clock out. You don't give a shit about your job in between. Building could burn down overnight. As long as you can clock back in the next day, sure, it doesn't matter. But when you own your own shit, balance isn't really a thing anymore. I much prefer to look at it as work-life integration, meaning how can I intertwine my business and my life in a way that feels aligned for me, in a way that energizes me. Yes, I set boundaries, but my business is always part of my life. I do this because I love doing this. I work 7 days a week, not because I have to, but because I legitimately enjoy what I do. Now that might mean like on the weekends, I only work 2 hours, but I would rather work those 2 hours than not. But if you don't love what you do, then yes, the work-life balance mental model is much more helpful. But as an entrepreneur, I haven't really met a quote unquote balanced entrepreneur. They're all obsessive. They're all in or they're not all or nothing. And their business is one of the things they've decided to be all in on, which is why another reason entrepreneurship can be lonely because other people don't get that. Right? When I talk to, some of my friends who aren't entrepreneurs, they'll bitch about their job for a little bit, but then they're talking about what they're doing that weekend or some, recreational thing, or it'll be, town gossip or some shit. But with my entrepreneur friends, it's always like, hey man, here's what we've been doing. oh, I can't wait to try this out next. Or yeah, I'm going to this conference and like, oh yeah, like what do you think about this new thing in the business world? Like we talk about business a shit ton because we like business, or we talk about creativity, or we talk about philosophy and how that informs our approach to business. Like everything generally comes back to that because we're doing what we love. And that means not really being able to turn it off. So for me, work-life integration, much better. Work-life balance, kind of a lie for entrepreneurs. Number 24, if you do not respect your value, no one else will. This includes your actual value, but also your boundaries, your time, whatever. If you don't respect your time, you can't expect other people to. Right? Like if I say, hey, I don't take client calls before noon, and a client is like, hey, can you squeeze me in at 7 a.m.? If I say yes, and there are exceptions, right? Sometimes like there's like a legitimate emergency or something. Okay. But as a general practice, if I say yes, I have now said I don't respect my time and you don't have to respect my time either. Or if somebody hits me up and they're like, hey, Corey, do you have 15 minutes for me to pick your brain? Do you have 15 minutes to jump on a call real quick so I can pitch you some bullshit? Early on, I used to think that I owed people my time. We're like, oh, well, they bought my course or they followed me for a while. I owe it to them to give them my time. And what that turned into was all of my time being spent on things that didn't serve me, on things that didn't align with what I was trying to do, on things that didn't actually allow me to help even more people. I was also burning out. And it came back to I wasn't respecting my own time. And like with value, if I say, hey, you want to work with me, this is how much it is for this, level of engagement. And someone's like, can you do half? No, I mean, I can, I just fucking won't. Because the fact that you're saying that means that you don't value me and what I bring to the table. Why would I want to work with somebody who doesn't value what I bring? Well, if I don't value what I bring, then I'm going to say yes. And obviously, yes, sometimes there's flexibility for various reasons. But as a blanket thing, it's really easy to just balk as soon as somebody's like, hey, can you do less? Hey, can you meet real quick? Hey, can you squeeze this in real quick? I remember when I worked at a rec center, I was a building manager. And one of the directors, he had a standing meeting with himself from noon to 1. And he would just go work out. And he would always have people say, hey, can you just skip that meeting? Or can you just push your workout to squeeze in another meeting with us? Or we have these important people coming in. He was like, look, that is a meeting with myself. If I push that meeting, I'm not respecting myself. But more importantly, when I have that meeting with myself, when I go work out, I am more effective the rest of the day. When I skip that meeting, I am less effective the rest of the day. And that really stuck with me. Like, respect starts with you. You have to respect the value you bring. You have to respect your boundaries. You have to respect your time, your pricing, whatever. If you ever want anyone else to respect it. Again, obviously there are exceptions, right? Sometimes you may be flexible in pricing. You may squeeze in a meeting, every now and then. But in general, respect starts with you. Number 25, confidence is overrated. Everybody wants to be more confident. Everybody wants, to just be the epitome of confidence. I don't think about it like confidence because we typically think about confidence as like the antidote to insecurity. Well, insecurity is often selfish in that it is self-centered. So when I was on Pat Flynn's podcast, he and I were talking about this. So he and I both do, public speaking. Like we speak in public for a living. And we were talking about like nerves and how like every time before I have to get up and talk, I have to pee. I get, my hands sweat. I get like, heart racing, all this. And that just doesn't go away. Hasn't gone away at this point, probably never will. And that's fine. But anytime I start to be like, oh, well, what will they think? What if I mess up what I have to say? Or what if I say it the wrong way? Or what if a joke doesn't land? Or what if, whatever, I forget a point, whatever it is. Well, that is all self-centered. My insecurities are because I'm focusing on myself. So you would think, oh, well, then the antidote is to be confident, exude confidence, speak to the back of the room, pull your shoulders back, like puff your chest out. Fuck all that. That form of confidence doesn't really work for a lot of people. I look at it much more as, what do I have conviction in? Meaning, what do I believe needs to exist in the world? Because it will help other people. So if I'm getting up on a stage and I'm talking to a group of people, rather than focusing on myself and my own perceived insecurities or inadequacies, I say, why do the people in this room need to hear this message? Well, now suddenly my self-consciousness goes away because I'm not focusing on myself anymore. I'm focusing on other people. What do they need? Why do they need it? Well, then confidence, you're bypassing confidence. Confidence is irrelevant at that point because you're focusing on what you have conviction in. And conviction inherently is about more than just yourself. Confidence is just you trying to give yourself a pep talk. Conviction will keep you going when your confidence would otherwise falter. So I stopped really thinking about confidence a long time ago. Now I say, what do I have conviction in? Why? Why do I have conviction in this? Why does this need to exist in the world? Well, now I'm focusing so much on helping other people and bringing this thing into reality. I've kind of removed myself from the equation and any of my own anxieties or insecurities that might come along. So, confidence, overrated. Number 26, no one knows what they're doing. Straight up nobody. The only people who claim to fully know what they're doing are full of shit and selling you some sort of snake oil, get rich quick fuckery. I have worked with people who are at the top of what they do. And I was talking to this one creator. I was like, yeah, I'm going to put out more content on, various topics, and I want to do higher level content that would target creators at your level, founders at your level. So for example, I clearly would not do something on imposter syndrome. And he looked at me, he was like, why? He was like, I have imposter syndrome. Everybody I know has imposter syndrome. I was like, dude, you're the reason other people have imposter syndrome. How the fuck do you have it? Like, you cause it in other people. And that was, kind of when I realized nobody knows what they're like. Everybody feels like they're just kind of winging it. And this is kind of part of being an entrepreneur. You never feel ready. You're never going to take perfect action. You're never going to be fully prepared. But the other thing with the concept of imposter syndrome, I look at it much more as liminal tension. So liminal space is just the space between two places, right? Like a hallway is a liminal space between the living room and the kitchen or something. Well, anytime we go from one room to another, we naturally experience like this tension of, oh, I haven't yet entered this room. Well, fundamentally, imposter syndrome is the belief that you don't belong in the room. So when most people start to enter that room and they feel that tension, they're like, oh fuck, I don't deserve to be here. I don't belong here. Let me back away. I'm not ready yet. I don't deserve to enter that, to cross the threshold of that room. But really that tension is saying, hey, this is a new room for you. This is a growth area for you. You've never been here before. Well, think about it. The alternative is stagnation, right? Like if you never push your growth edges, if you never leave your comfort zone, if you never embrace discomfort or uncertainty, then you're not evolving, you're not growing, you're stagnating. Versus learning to almost chase, or at the very least embrace, that liminal tension anytime it comes up. That's how you grow. And reminding yourself, nobody knows what they're doing fully. Everybody's winging it to some extent. And everybody in that room you think you don't belong in, they're all having those same fucking thoughts to one degree or another. And the way you grow, the way you evolve is by embracing, is by leaning into that tension and entering that room anyway. Number 27, it feels hard because it is hard. Entrepreneurship is personal development in disguise. Where like you can read all the fucking books you want, take the courses, do the summits and mastermind retreats and whatever. Sit here and like do some sort of holotropic breathing or some shit with a YouTube tutorial. All that's fine. Listen to the motivational podcasts or whatever. Have the poster of the cat that just says, hang in there, kitten. Like you can do all that shit. Okay, fine. Or you can start a fucking business. And now suddenly you can't hide from your character flaws. You can't bullshit yourself. You can't live in the realm of fantasy and what maybe could happen one day if you maybe applied yourself. Every fucking day is on you. If you have an insecurity, guess what? That insecurity is going to keep you from making money. You goddamn well better learn how the fuck to deal with that insecurity. There's no more of this theory shit. It's you straight up have to figure it the fuck out. Because every day is about building. It's about learning. It's about fucking up, learning from that fuck up, and iterating on that fuck up so you don't fuck up the same way again. I don't know much better ways of legitimately embracing personal development and personal growth than starting a business. Growth is hard in business and in life, which is why most people spend their entire lives avoiding the work they know they need to do to grow because it's hard. Obviously, you don't have to start a business, right? Like this is, me to myself 5 years ago kind of deal. So obviously I'm talking about entrepreneurship, but it goes for anything. Like and even like with, the last lesson around, imposter syndrome and liminal tension. Growth is fucking hard. It is uncomfortable. But what else are you going to do? Like, how else do you want to spend your time? Do you actually want to be the same person you are today in 5 years? That would suck. That you just didn't improve for 5 years? Are you not a better version of yourself today than you were 5 years ago? Well, how the fuck did you get to this point? By constantly pushing your growth edges, by doing more than you maybe thought you could, by constantly pushing against the maximum of your capability, of your comfort zone. Growth is hard. Growth in life is hard. Growth in business is hard. It feels hard because it is hard. Even going to the gym and working out. Working out is fucking hard. Now, once you develop the habit of it, then it becomes like you need to do it to feel right that day. But it's still hard. Even shit you want to do, even shit you enjoy doing, most of it's still fucking hard. Which is why most other people don't do those things. So anytime I start to throw a little pity party like, oh, this is so hard. Oh, it's so hard to figure out. I remind myself, motherfucker, yeah, you are correct. It feels hard because it is hard. And most people spend their entire lives avoiding doing hard things, which is why they live a mediocre existence and then get to the end of their life and they look back filled with regret at all the things they wish they would have done, deeply wanted to do, but didn't do. Because they were afraid, because it felt too hard, or some other bullshit excuse. It feels hard because it is hard. Embrace that, lean into it, deal with it, move the fuck on. Number 28, no one gives a shit about you. Straight up, people do not care about you. Early on, I read this book called Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit by Stephen Pressfield. And effectively, the premise of the book is the title. Nobody wants to read your shit. Meaning, if you're going to write a book, respect people's time. Don't spend fucking forever on this preamble or all this unnecessary backstory and shit. Respect their time, because the time someone gives you to read your book is an aspect, is a little unit of their life they can never get back, right? When somebody spends 5 minutes reading your book, that is 5 minutes of their life that they will never get back, that they are choosing to invest in your thing. Give them their due respect by creating something valuable and that is worth that time they're spending with you. Well, it's the same thing with me when I came online and started building a personal brand, reputation, whatever. Nobody gave a shit about who I was. Nobody gave a shit. I was a psychologist, or I had spent 12 years getting the doctorate and then rising to the top of my field and then doing all this other shit. Nobody gave a shit. Didn't matter. What they cared about was, what value did I have to provide? Did I have ideas worth engaging with? Was I sharing things that actually improved their life? Was the content I was putting out respectful of the time they were investing into me to engage with that piece of content? People don't care about your credentials. They care about your competence and your ability to convey that competence in a way that feels authentic. And yes, maybe, eventually people do start to give a shit about you. They do start to care about you and your specific takes on things. Sure. But early on, before people know you, nobody gives a shit about you. They can't give a shit about you because they don't fucking know you yet. So it is your responsibility to create things that respect their time, that bring value to them. Like take yourself out of it. Think about the other person. Think about the people you're trying to serve. Number 29, stories move people, not statistics. Every day I try to get a little bit better at storytelling because I suck at it. But people remember stories. When I read The Obstacle Is the Way by Ryan Holiday, other than like the title of the book, I don't remember much of the content of the book. Again, other than like the overall premise of the book, of what impedes the way becomes the way, sort of thing. But there's one story in it that has stuck with me. And it was this whole idea of like the Banana King or some shit. Basically, there was this plot of land to grow like banana trees on. And two people claimed to have the deed to this land. So clearly, like, one of the people was lying. Well, there was this solo entrepreneur and this big mega company, and they both wanted to own that land for the banana trees. But the issue was that these two dudes both claimed to have the deed. Well, the big mega company, they're like, okay, well, we're going to spend a shit ton of money doing all this research, hiring all these lawyers, and we're going to figure out which is the true deed. Because we don't want to pay the shyster for his fake deed. So we're going to figure out who owns the deed so we can buy it from the right one. Well, a little solo, small business owner, he was like, I don't have the resources to do that. I straight up cannot compete with the big boys. He was like, well, what is my actual goal here? My goal isn't to learn who owns the correct deed. My goal is to own the fucking land. So what the little dude did was he just bought the deed from both people. Because he's like, it doesn't matter if one's lying to me, because as long as I buy both, I'm guaranteed to have the correct deed. And that stuck with me, because now I'm like, okay, what is my actual goal? Like, not, again, I'm not trying to figure out who has the right deed. My actual goal, the thing I'm actually trying to accomplish, is to own that land. And learning to see past that obstacle, that problem, toward the actual end result, toward the thing you're actually striving to achieve, has provided me so much clarity over the years. But the reason I remember that is because of the story Ryan Holiday put into that book. All the expertise you have, all the value you have to share will fall on deaf ears if you don't learn how to package it appropriately. If you don't learn how to convey those ideas, those emotions, those experiences to other people. We remember stories. We don't remember, general statistics or all these, complicated facts and shit nearly as effectively as storytelling. So I'm always thinking to myself, like, what story can I share right now? Number 30. Know when to widen your vision and when to put on blinders. It's really easy to get caught up in, I need to figure out how to hit 10K MRR. I need to figure out how to build $1 million business. You don't. You're thinking too big, too far down the line, because thinking about how you're going to build a $1 million business is irrelevant until you hit a 6-figure business, which is irrelevant until you learn how to make $10,000, which is irrelevant until you learn how to make a fucking $1,000 or $100 or $10 or one goddamn dollar. But so many people get caught up in, okay, this is my $1 million roadmap. Shut the fuck up. Your roadmap's never going to fucking actually work in reality. Like, no matter what you think, no matter how easy you think it's going to be, it will, or even how hard you think it's going to be, it's always going to be harder than you think. It's going to take longer than you think. Sometimes that wider vision or that long-term, longer time horizon type of thinking can be important, but a lot of times it is just a distraction from doing the work in front of you. Like, what do you need to do today to succeed? What do you need to do to hit your first $1,000 first? Once you hit that $1,000, then you can start to look a little bit further. Okay, well, cool. How do I turn this into a 10? What do I need to do to scale it up to 10? Scale it up to 50, scale it up to 70, scale it up to 100. Rather than saying like, $1 million is on the horizon, I'm running toward it. That's irrelevant until you hit these other shorter term milestones. And also thinking through how you're going to make your first $1,000 or $10,000 way simpler in scope than trying to get to $1 million. Like $10,000, like that's either a couple clients over a couple month period. That is one good launch. That is, it depends, but that's much more doable and feels much more achievable than saying, okay, well, I know this one guy, he makes $500,000 a year. I need to do that in the next 6 months. Unless you have a shit ton of resources and a lot of like incredibly unfair advantages, you're probably going to be better off to look at how can you make 50K, not 500K for now. This also goes for like napkin math. It's really easy to get caught up doing napkin math. Like, so here's how I hit $1 million. I need to have this many clients and charge each of them this much. And then I need to sell this many courses at this price point. And then I have these, down sells at this price point, and then these upsells at this price point. And then I have my membership over here. And then I have this much in sponsorship revenue. Oh, easy. As long as I just hit this napkin math, easy. Napkin math is so fun to do because it's so simple. You say, well, I want to charge, if I want to get to $100,000, I just need to charge 10 people $10,000. Well, I have a year to just find 10 people to give me $10,000. So simple. I only have to close one client a month at $10,000. And well, fuck, that's $120,000. That's more than $100,000. Problem is, what the fuck are you offering that is worth somebody giving you $10,000? But also, how are you going to find these people willing to give you that $10,000? And then how are you going to deliver that value in the first place? Too easy to get caught up in napkin math. And again, a little bit just to do projections or understand like, oh fuck, like, okay, well, 10 at 10K, like that's a good bit. Maybe I can do 50 people at 2K. Maybe that's a little bit easier. Or maybe getting 100 people for 1,000. Or maybe 200 people at $500. Oh, 200 at 500, like what would that look like? How could I make that happen? Oh, if I get a 1% conversion rate, then I need to have at least 100 people visit the landing page so that one of them converts. So then so I have a 1% conversion rate and I need to get 200 conversions. Well, what does that mean? How many people do I need to visit that page? Oh, well, I need 20,000 people to visit this page for the 1% conversion, assuming that holds, to turn into 200 total conversions. Okay, well then, it's a little bit of napkin math. Okay. So then the question is, how do you generate 20,000 visitors to that page? That, again, still not easy to do, but it gives you a more realistic idea of like, oh, okay, in order for me to actually hit this, I might need to figure out how to get at least 20,000 people to even look at that page I have. Well, I'm only getting 300 people a month to look at that page. Cool. Then that is telling you you're probably not going to hit those 200 members for $100,000 in your first year. So in that case, it can be helpful, but only so much as it gives you a better idea of how much effort it was going to take. Otherwise, it's just going to be a distraction. Like, oh, 10 people and I charge each $10,000, like 100K easy, simple. Bullshit. Number 31, don't live online. Live offline and share online. Matthew McConaughey was on some talk show and he was talking about advice he gave to his son at the time. And his son was, starting his own Instagram and just getting on social media and things. And McConaughey said, don't create for social media. Live your life and just share what you're doing. And this kind of echoes what Gary Vee early on said, which was document, don't create. A lot of people get really caught up in creating content specifically for social media. And then they just kind of, they perpetually live online. They're always commenting on all the things. They're trying to be like, okay, how do I make this perfect graphic? And, what is my hook? And what about this? And what about that? And they're optimizing, again, looking at what you measure, they're optimizing for social media. But that turns into they're not actually living a life. They're not actually doing anything worth talking about. They're trying to just come up with ideas to share online rather than living their life and just sharing what they learn and what they're doing with their following. The other thing is a lot of people who have large followings didn't actually build them through playing the social media games. Like, for example, Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, on basically any platform he goes on, has a huge following on day one. Well, he's not playing the social media game. All he's doing is just posting about what he's actively doing. Right? Like right now, if you follow him on Blue Sky, all of his shit is about cost plus drugs, one of his latest companies. He's not doing some fucking viral hook format template shit. He's like, hey, this is what I did. Hey, here's a cool thing that we just rolled out. People aren't following him because he has perfectly manicured posts. They're following him because he's a genuinely interesting person to follow because of all the cool shit he's doing in real life. So rather than getting caught up in this whole like, okay, I got to post at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every day, and I need to comment on at least 10 posts before I post my own thing. And then I have to have an engagement pod. And then I have to, okay, well, this is the latest meta for like the hooks that are working or the viral formats. Fuck all of that. Do cool shit offline. Live your fucking life offline and just share what you're doing online and then move the fuck on. Number 32, pick what you want to be great at, then accept being mediocre at everything else. Early on, I loved like Peter McKinnon's videos or like Becky and Chris, Jeremy Sears, just the way they did their color grading for their YouTube videos. Some of them are like cinematic, saturated, muted, like just the darks were just so much more vibrant. Loved it. Loved just the aesthetic of it. So when I started recording my own videos, I'm like, okay, I need to be like a world-class like editor and color grader. I need to like learn all this fucking fancy ass shit and like what is, how do I do like, raw video? What is log? And what are these fucking histograms and shit? But then I quickly realized I don't want to be a world-class editor. I don't want to be a world-class color grader. I appreciate it. And I would love for my videos to be more cinematic. And I would definitely be down to collaborate with people in the future. But me, myself, what I actually want to do and be great at, I want to be a great coach. I want to be a great educator, a great speaker, a great writer, a great facilitator. These are the things I focus my energy on, not everything else. And it's really hard to accept mediocrity or to accept being mediocre at certain things, especially when you want to be great at everything. But you can't be great at everything. But you can be great at a couple things. So what are those few things that are worth being great at and worth developing as your craft? Because, for example, if I want to be a great writer, well, then every hour I spend editing a video or doing some other kind of thing is an hour I'm not getting reps in on writing. So really getting super clear on what do you want to be great at. That means you don't want to be great at all the other shit. So accept not being great at that other shit. Either just straight up accept those things being mediocre or just outsource them and have other people do them for you. Because other people who do want to be great editors or great website developers or whatever that is, cool, work with them. But you yourself accept not being great at them. Number 33, forget trends, focus on timeless. So, you probably heard the whole Bezos and Amazon thing where most businesses were like, oh, what's going to change in the next 5 or 10 years? And he famously was like, no, we think about what's not going to change. What's not going to change is people want choices. They want lower prices and they want faster shipping. So that's what we focus on because those things are timeless. Those are the evergreen, perennial, whatever things that don't really change. So many people get focused on trend jacking or chasing trends. And this means that they naturally churn super often. Like the number of people I've seen are like, they were the copywriting expert, and then they were the Web3 expert, and then they were the AI expert. And it's like, motherfucker, like how did you like AI or crypto? Crypto came out and was pseudo adopted, and you are claiming that you have been an expert for years. And I'm like, motherfucker, I saw your profile 3 months ago and you were a different kind of expert. They're just chasing trends. But that also means, going back to building a portfolio of assets compound in value over time. Chasing trends doesn't align with that because like everything you do has a fairly short lifespan because you're just chasing a trend, and trends by their very nature end pretty quickly. I would much rather focus on what is timeless. Like, so for me, timeless things people struggle with are fear, imposter syndrome, insecurity, feeling stuck, waiting for permission to do the thing, learning to trust themselves, embracing their authenticity, doing the work only they can do, the work that they quote unquote feel called to do or are deeply passionate about doing. All of that, the psychological side of entrepreneurship, that's really what I focus on because that's pretty timeless. Now, you can take something timeless and make it timely, right? So, for example, if I wanted to talk about how do you say the thing only you can say in the age of AI, when AI can probably say the same thing better, how can you, rather than trying to compete on being the best speaker or saying it the best way or having the best grammar, how can you instead focus on saying the thing only you can say, sharing your story? AI doesn't have a childhood. You have a childhood. Well, that's still in the realm of what I do, of how can you share yourself and your ideas with the world? How can you come up with ideas or unlock inspiration from everyday occurrences? That's one aspect of what I do with people. So that's a timeless thing. Like, timeless people want to share themselves and their experiences, but sometimes they struggle with insecurity, with imposter syndrome, with giving themselves permission to say, oh, calling yourself a writer or some shit. I can make that timely by connecting this timeless thing to something currently going on, which right now would be AI and writing and things. But I'm still focusing on the timeless aspect of human experiences. Number 34, choose the torture you're comfortable with. I was watching a clip. Jerry Seinfeld was on the Howard Stern show, and Seinfeld was talking about how he's never fully present. Like, when he's with his wife and his kids, he's always half thinking about a joke or how he could turn the situation into a joke. He said, even, talking with Howard Stern, he's like, I'm not even fully here with you right now. I'm thinking about how I can make this into a bit someday. And Howard Stern was like, that must be torture. And Seinfeld said, it is. It is. But it is the torture I'm comfortable with. He said, your blessing in life is when you find the torture you're comfortable with. And for me, that is definitely writing, and some of the other things I do. To me, writing feels like belly crawling through broken glass. It is always excruciating, whether it is like like legitimate, like a fucking tweet, a LinkedIn post, an article, my book, whatever. It's excruciating. Like the process is excruciating. It is torturous, but it is the torture I willingly choose because it is the thing I can't not do. I am compelled to do it. I am obsessed with doing it. Like if I had to take 2 weeks off and for a quote unquote vacation, if I wasn't allowed to write during that time, I'd rather just not even fucking go. Even though writing is excruciating for me sometimes, I can't not do it. And again, this comes back to, growth isn't linear. It isn't guaranteed. It isn't even pleasant a lot of times. A lot of times growth is uncomfortable. A lot of times, we like to glorify, oh, just follow your passion. Okay, but the thing you actually deeply want to do and are well positioned to do, that doesn't mean it is easy or simple. It's still probably going to be painful. It's still probably going to be excruciating sometimes. And the people who dedicate themselves to their craft, most of them will tell you like there's a lot of unpleasant bits when it comes to pursuing their craft, but that doesn't mean it isn't worth it. So again, rather than trying to find the easy route or the guaranteed route or whatever, really looking at what problems do I want to have? Mark Manson says, what is, pick your favorite flavor of shit sandwich. Tom Bilyeu says, the struggle is guaranteed, success isn't. So again, like, what torture do you want? What problems do you want to have? What shit sandwich would you rather eat? What struggle do you want to sign up for? This to me is just a much more well-balanced, holistic, real question than, oh, well, what are you passionate about? What feels effortless to you that feels effortful to everybody else? I just don't like that shit because it's like nothing feels effortless to me. Even when it looks it, and even if, maybe in that particular moment it feels, kind of I'm in the flow, that's on the foundation of a decade plus worth of grinding it out, eating shit, belly crawling through broken fucking glass. So it's just a much more helpful reframe for me of choose the torture you're comfortable with. Number 35, it is going to feel like drinking from a fire hose for a long time. Entrepreneurship is overwhelming. Entrepreneurship is overwhelming. You are the marketer, the copywriter, the writer, the script producer, the on-air talent, the course creator, curriculum designer, workshop host, graphic designer, coordinator, investor, visionary, operator, whatever the fuck else. You are everything. Like I was sitting here trying to Google how to start an LLC, trying to figure out, okay, well, now I need a website. Well, how do I do a website? Well, now I have to learn like hosting and template design and, site maps and submitting it to Google. And then it's like, okay, well, how the fuck do I send an invoice? Okay, well, how do I do a call? Okay, well, now I need to get Zoom. Now I need to figure out how do I do an invoice? Is it through PayPal? How does PayPal work? Like, okay, well, now I got Stripe. God damn, Stripe's dashboard is overwhelming. Then there's all that. On top of actually learning how to like be effective at the shit that I do, the actual services and products I create, is all the back end shit. Like it is overwhelming, which is why a lot of people don't do it. You got a regular job, you go in, you do what the fuck you're told to do, and then you leave. And as long as you keep doing what the fuck you're told to do in a good enough manner, generally you keep getting money. With entrepreneurship, if you don't figure it the fuck out, you don't make money. If you don't figure out how to make it better, right? Like, okay, I learned copywriting, but then it's like, well, my conversions on this landing page aren't as high as I would like them to be. Okay, well, what problem is causing that? Is it my actual copywriting? Well, maybe I need to switch from, ADA to the pastor model, or I need to go from this one to that one, or I know I need to do the before after bridge, whatever. Maybe it isn't my copywriting. Maybe I need more testimonials. Well, how do I get testimonials? Well, maybe the actual website design is a little too clunky. Maybe I fucked up the buy button. Maybe it isn't even that. Maybe it's just my top of funnel. Okay, well, what the fuck is top of funnel? How do I figure out how to fix my top of funnel? All of these things are just the daily reality of entrepreneurship. It's overwhelming. because it is all on you to figure out. But just because it is overwhelming doesn't mean it isn't worth it. Because again, going back, entrepreneurship is personal development in disguise. How else are you going to develop yourself so much, so deeply, so quickly than when shit actually matters? It's overwhelming. You can handle it. Number 36, focus on resonance over reach. This is something I picked up from my friend Jay Akunzo. Also had him on the podcast. You can check out that episode. And Jay's whole thing is, one aspect of it is, would you rather have 50,000 followers of just random people or 500 followers or subscribers of Fortune 500 CEOs? Who follows you? Who loves your shit is way, way more important than how many people follow you. But also, it is much more important how much people feel connected to you. And, Kevin Kelly talks about, find your 1,000 true fans. And your 1,000 true fans are basically the people who love your shit so much, whatever you put out, they buy. Because these are the people who deeply get it, who love what you do, who fully connect with your authenticity. But it's also, when you put out something, and somebody who's very discerning, they're a leader in their space, they're really, really good at what they do, and they have a very low tolerance for any sort of bullshit or fluff. When somebody like that says, hey, I love your shit, or hey, I recommend your thing to everybody, that's what matters. And the other thing with resonance is, true compounding takes time. But once it gets going, it turns into, a tidal wave that can shift the paradigms and the very zeitgeist we're part of. No, that wasn't AI scripting this. Like, that's actually how I fucking talk. I don't fuck with AI with my scripts and shit or my outlines. But when you deeply resonate with one person, they stick around. And then they tell other people about you. And then now other people start to resonate with you. And then they tell other people about you. That is how that compounding works. But if you just try to put shit out that reaches the masses, okay, cool. Maybe you get a lot of reach, but you're not putting anything out that has real nuance, that doesn't actually connect with people and resonate with people. That to me is just much more effective and much more aligned with what I want to do with my life and my business. I want to resonate with the right people rather than just reaching, the blind masses, the mindless masses of the generic population. Because it's also like, it is much better to be surrounded by decision makers than tire kickers. Period. So really looking at, am I trying to focus on resonating with people, sharing unique things, being authentic, legitimately providing value, or am I just trying to blindly chase as much reach and virality as possible? Number 37, embrace your dark horse era. I came across this term a couple years ago. And the dark horse is basically somebody who's really good at what they do, but they just haven't gained recognition yet. There will be a period where you will be really fucking good at what you do, and not nearly enough people will know about you. And having competence without an audience is, existentially excruciating, because you're like, well, fuck, I'm good at this. Why don't enough people know about it? Why aren't people talking about it? Why aren't people flocking to me? And it can start to make you kind of question your own abilities. It's like, well, if I'm as good as I think I am, and if I'm as good as some other people tell me I am, why the fuck are there not more people around me? That's just sort of part of this dark horse era that everybody has to go through. Because the alternative is like 15 minutes of fame, right? Like you can like hawk to some shit, go viral for a minute, and then everybody fucking forgets about you. You have value to give, but there's going to be a period where you don't have anyone to give that value to, or you have a painfully small group of people to give that value to. But the cool thing with this is you're still getting better. You're still helping real people. You're stacking those skills and you're working on that resonance. And over time, that resonance can turn into reach. Over time, maybe you're sort of like a name people whisper behind closed doors. Like, oh yeah, this Corey guy, he's pretty cool. Oh, who's that? But maybe eventually, you see your name plastered on billboards in Times Square. Like maybe you get to that level of fame and you're no longer the dark horse. Like you are the end all be all, whatever. Okay. You don't really control that. Instead, focusing on what you do control, which is doing the work only you can do. and being the best goddamn person in the world who does that thing. Eventually, recognition, revenue, resonance, whatever, become the byproducts of just doing the fucking work, right? It's like, that whole idea of it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Everybody I know who other people may consider them an overnight success or they had this rapid rise to fame, they were grinding it out in their dark horse era for years and years and years when nobody knew who the fuck they were. But they were consistently getting better and better and better and resonating with one person after another until eventually they crossed that threshold into more of the mainstream. And then everybody else found out about them. You don't control that part, but you do control showing up every day, becoming the best you can possibly be at that thing, and kind of just letting the rest fall where it may. Number 38, the final harsh truth about business and entrepreneurship I've learned over the last 5 years. Most productivity issues aren't due to a lack of discipline, but an abundance of fear. Like productivity at its core is about efficiency. How can you do more things? So when you say, well, I'm struggling with procrastination, I'm struggling with not getting things done on time. Well, then the productivity space would say, oh, you need to do Pomodoro techniques, or oh, you need to do an Eisenhower matrix to make better decisions, or oh, you need to do, an 80-20 analysis to figure out what few things actually lead to the most results. Those productivity strategies are fine, but the reason they typically don't work for people, when they don't work for people, is that procrastination or a lot of these other quote unquote productivity issues, these self-sabotaging behaviors, are actually just fear avoidance in disguise. So if you've read all the productivity books, you've taken the courses, you've applied all the fucking frameworks and systems and strategies and shit, and they're just not working, probably because the reason you procrastinate is to avoid something you're afraid of happening. Right? So like if I'm afraid that if I publish this article, people are going to judge me, they're going to criticize me, they're going to make fun of me or whatever, then procrastination is serving a real function. It is helping me avoid risking that judgment coming my way. So the longer I put off hitting publish, the longer I put off potentially having to deal with trolls and shit. Well, when that's the case for me, an Eisenhower matrix isn't going to do fuck all. The Pomodoro session isn't doing anything. It's not going to make me more courageous or some shit, right? It's not going to help me learn to deal with the mental toll of trolls. All of that is fear-based. So now anytime I start to, whether it's procrastinate or shiny object syndrome, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, all of these other things, anytime I start to feel that I'm pulling back from doing something, I ask myself, what fear might this be helping me avoid? What thing that what could I maybe be afraid of that this is helping me avoid? And whatever that answer is, that's what I deal with, rather than just saying, oh, how do I be more productive? How do I just, smash through my procrastination? That's not usually the actual issue. The actual issue, probably that you're afraid. All right, y'all, I don't even know what the final time for this solo episode is going to be, but it's been a fucking doozy. These are some of, because I have plenty others, but I feel like this has been long enough. These are some of the harsh truths, the harsh business lessons I wish I would have known 5 years ago when I started my business. Every time I've struggled over the last 5 years, it has been because I've forgotten at least one of these. And every time I've succeeded, it has been because I have kept these at the forefront in my mind. I'm super curious though. What harsh truths or business lessons have you learned on your own entrepreneurial journey? Leave a comment and let me know. I would legitimately love to kind of crowdsource other lessons. And before you go, 2 things. I've already talked to you about the Creator Alchemy Lab, my online membership community. Would love to have you join if you felt aligned. Again, we go through multiple group coaching calls every month. We've got workshops, challenges, a bunch of async resources, support, super, super supportive community. Fucking love hanging out there. And the other cool thing with like the Creator Alchemy Lab versus like social media, for example, like when I go on Facebook now, which Facebook for me is mostly just to keep in touch with like high school friends or some shit. I counted out one time and like legitimately 20, like I looked through the first 20 posts, 2 or 3 of them were actually from people I followed. Everything else was suggested or an ad or a sponsored thing or some AI generated bullshit. So it's like, I scrolled multiple times and didn't even see my actual friends I wanted to stay connected with. With the Creator Alchemy Lab, when you join and you look through that as your feed, Everybody there are one, they're real people. It's real shit, but it's also people you actually want to see, you actually want to connect with. And for me, this is, trying to bring the social back in social media. That's one of the reasons for this community is for you to socialize and get support and connect with other creators, founders, leaders, entrepreneurs, other people in it pursuing their own entrepreneurial journey who understand some of these things we talked about today. They understand what you're going through. They understand like, oh, well, I'm about to make this big business decision that I can't really come back from. Like once I commit to this, there's no going back. Fuck, I'm afraid. How do I deal with that insecurity? How do I make sure this is the right move for me? That's some shit you can't Google. That's some shit you can't just ask a random friend for advice for, right? That's the type of shit you need a community of people who get it, who not necessarily will always going to give you like spoon feed your answers, but they can be there to support you, to help you process your own decisions so that you can come to your own true conclusion for you and how you want to move forward. We've got everybody from like financial wealth planners to coaches, consultants, YouTubers, videographers, like tons of different people. Would absolutely love to have you in the community. creatoralchemy.com/lab. I'll put a link below. Would love to have you there. If you're not ready to join a community like that, the other thing, super simple, just subscribe to the newsletter, creatoralchemy.com. It's completely free. I send out weekly issues. You will get exclusive content I don't share anywhere else. It's also just a good way to stay connected, right? Because again, the whole algorithm thing. Subscribe to the newsletter, you always get my shit. And you can just hit reply and we can start an actual real conversation that isn't just in the comments section. It's an actual dialogue we can have. So just go to creatoralchemy.com to subscribe completely for free. And when you subscribe, shoot me a reply. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I would legitimately love to get to know more about you. All right, that's all I got for today. If y'all have any other questions, comments, concerns, feel free to hit me up. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Take it easy.